Welcome to Fostering Solutions, a podcast that uplifts people and enterprises making positive impact in communities around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Foster. Greetings, everyone. This is a special episode of Fostering Solutions. And in one of my various roles in the community, I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And our chapter in Charleston we're hosting the Delta Authors on Tour. So we've got most of the authors who are going to be at our Midwest region stop here with us in conversation today. So we just wanted to really give you some insights into them, their books, and their lives. And you of course will be joining us, I hope, on May 4th, 2024, at the Kanawha County Public Library to meet them in person. But we just wanted to give you a feel for them and for what their books are about, and what influenced their books and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Sonia Gregg. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and the name of your book. We can start there with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Sonia Whitaker Gregg, and I am originally from Nashville, Tennessee. I pledged at the University of Memphis Epsilon Kappa chapter in 1989, and I am now with the INSA chapter, Evanston North Shore alumni, right here in Greater Chicago. And I've written 4 children's books. And the book on this tour is, I think, my favorite one. It's called In Cahoots with My Boots. And it is a book that's all about affirmations and self-confidence. It's really about a little girl who loves wearing her boots, but she believes that she only has confidence when she is wearing them. And so she ends up going to a brand new school, and the dress code says that no boots are allowed. So this book is really about her finding her inner confidence, learning to use affirmations, and just really kind of teaching our kids about how to have that self-confidence within themselves, no matter what they're wearing, no matter what's going on with their day. So that is my book that I'm doing on this tour.
Is it targeted to a certain age group?
So I mean, reading level, I think, is more like first, second grade, but it's a book that I've read to all elementary age kids because, of course, affirmations are so important, regardless of age. So I do try to target elementary, like preschool to about third grade.
Okay, good. And we've got Sora Kirsten Maiden.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again so much for the opportunity. My name is Kirsten Maiden, and I was initiated into Delta at the Baltimore Metropolitan Alumni Chapter in fall 20. I actually recently was in Baltimore, but moved to Martinsburg, West Virginia. I serve in ministry, so my husband's a pastor, which led me to write my first book, which is on the tour. It's called Merciful Moments, a devotional journal for moving forward with grace each day. And so I wrote that in 2021. Essentially for women who just struggle with perfectionism, trying to juggle all the balls, handle all the responsibilities, do all the things, which I know, all of us are trying to be masters of. And the goal, the premise behind the book is really to empower and encourage the reader with scriptures, practical strategies, and just some real life experiences from my own story, to just help you kind of get unstuck, kind of overcome that overwhelm, and just receive the richness of God's mercy and grace each day. So I wrote the book in a time actually after I just had my daughter, who's now 6, and didn't know what I was doing, didn't want to drop the balls, didn't want to do anything wrong, and so God had to slow me down real quick. And so as a result, there's 27 devotionals in the book, and that's really the goal of the devotional books. I look forward to sharing more at the Delta Authors on Tour.
Okay, great. And we've got Soror Lakeisha Barron Brown.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for this opportunity. As stated, my name is Lakeisha Barron Brown. I was initiated in Charleston Institute Alumni Chapter in spring of 2005. And so the book that I'll be featuring at Delta Authors on Tour on May the 4th will be my autobiography, which is Through the Eye of a Cracked Soul. And it's an inspirational book that talks a lot about my life. So as it may be an autobiography, it is used to inspire people to know that no matter what you go through, your DNA, which is your determination and ambition, can persevere you through anything that you may face. And so that's the book in which I'll be showing at the Delta Office on Tour.
Okay.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
We've got Sora Jessica Childress.
Good evening, sorors. Again, my name is Jessica Childress. I was initiated into Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in the fall of 2020 by way of the Federal City Alumni Chapter. And I'm a proud member of the 78 Forces of Fortitude. My line sisters are wonderful. And I thank them so much for all the support that they've given me along the way in my author journey. I am from Richmond, Virginia, but I live in Washington, D.C. now. And during the Delta Authors on Tour event, I'll be showcasing my book, The Briefcase of Jurisprudence. And one of the covers is actually behind me. And I have 6 books in the Jurisprudence collection. I have 3 prose books and one on the way, President Prudence, where the main character, JP, is running for president. But on the Delta Authors on Tour event, JP, it's my first book, and JP is trying to get kids the right to vote. So she's an 11-year-old lawyer. I'm a practicing attorney right now, and I still write books. But JP is trying to get kids the right to vote, and she's using her voice to motivate her community and motivate her peers to understand that nothing should stop them from believing in their dreams. Nothing should let them stop. Nothing should stop them from changing their community, and age is just a number. And so I'm looking forward to sharing more about the inspiration behind jurisprudence during this podcast and during the Delta Authors on Tour event.
Awesome. Need to get a copy of your book for my niece. That's kind of what that's sounding like. Leslie Copeland Toon is another author with us.
Good evening, Soras and everyone. I am Leslie Copeland Toon. I live in the Washington, D.C. Metro area in Silver Spring, Maryland. I serve as the Senior Associate General Secretary and Advocacy Director for the National Council of the Churches of Christ in the USA. I pledged in spring 1988 at Syracuse University Kappa Lambda chapter. And I grew up in Mount Vernon, money earning Mount Vernon, New York, which I'm proud of both of those, and just so excited to be with you. I can't wait to buy everybody's book. So that's number one. My book is called 24/7 Embodying Christ-like Leadership. I'm an ordained Baptist minister. I was ordained in 2001. It's like time really flies. So I really wrote this book. We were in the middle of the pandemic. It was around October 2020. I was watching the news and watching what I received as Christian leaders being very just really callous about how we were to take care of ourselves during the pandemic. And so I really honestly felt led to write this book. I had written a chapter on Christian leadership that was published in another book. And so I took some of the segments of that and just expanded it to be a book about what it means and what it looks like to be a Christian and a leader, regardless of the setting that you're in. And so the book was really to challenge us to embody Christ, no matter if we're in a boardroom or at, in a faith-based organization or corporate America, but really to embody Christ, regardless of the setting that we're in. And I try to emphasize it's not about perfection, but it's about striving to reach the standard, which in my faith tradition is Christ. So I'm so excited about all of these books and looking forward to sharing some time with you all soon.
Thank you. And we've got Sora Candace McField.
It's a joy to be here. So thanks so much for having this podcast. I am from Kansas City and initiated for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated spring of 2019. And just so excited to be a Delta author on tour. And the book I will be showcasing is the one I wrote is called As for Me and My Body. And so as you can see, it's like a play off the scripture. You know, we've had a lot of conversation already about our faith, right? So as for me and my body, right, is like, what will we do? Like, I will serve the Lord. And so the whole purpose of the book is a 21-day journey the reader goes through to help Christians bridge their physical and spiritual health. Just because I feel like Christians we're really people, not only Christians, but people put in a box. Like we have physical health on one side and spiritual health on this other side, but really they're congruent, especially for us as Christians. And so I use just very short chapters to like have like inspiration and motivation on that spiritual side, and you have a spiritual challenge to do, and then you have like that correlated physical education side, and then a physical challenge to do. And so the reader will do that format for 21 days, and the whole purpose, like I said, is to help Christians like bridge their physical and spiritual health. But like our tagline is to help people stop dieting, live healthy, and transform to truly fit. And so when I say truly fit, like I'm just hoping to inspire people to like have a healthy lifestyle that's like not only physically healthy, but mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy as well.
Awesome, awesome. I'm happy to be joining the tour as well. I am from the Charleston Institute Alumni Chapter. I was initiated spring of 21, and I've served as chapter president. And I'm honored to be a Delta author. I published my first book in February of 2023, and it's about nonprofits. Before my current job, I ran a nonprofit from the ground up, like from the first program, employee number one. And really, when I left that career about 8 years ago, I wanted to capture the journey and really capture the lessons that I learned to share with other nonprofit leaders. So I started writing the book many years ago. I finally finished it in 2023. And it's just a labor of love, really just guiding, sharing my journey, inspiring people so they can know, regardless of their background, if they're really serious about ministry and serious about community ministry, because the nonprofit was started by a church, that you can really make an impact in your community. Because if I had no idea and I could have done it, so can you. So that's the whole theme behind my book. And it's maximizing impact, success strategies for dynamic nonprofits. We also have an 8th author, and her name, she wasn't able to join us today. Her name is Barbara Keaton Stubblefield, and she wrote Nights Over Egypt, and that is a fiction novel, and we look forward to hearing more about hers in person. So we try to really pick different genres of authors. Hopefully you'll see that. We've got something for the kids. We've got, for our spirituality, for inspiration, for nonprofits. So hopefully our audience will find something, a book, an author that they can connect with on this tour. Our event is going to be May 4th starting at 2:00 at the Kanawha County Public Library, downtown Charleston, West Virginia. It's at 123 Capitol Street. And it's going to be, we'll have some greetings from our leaders from the region, and then we really jump into hearing from our authors about their books and really, selling books. That's going to be the main focus, really getting you out there to connect with the audience. So as you reflect on your book writing process, what was that like? Was it really easy? Did you have a routine? What was that like? And you all can just jump in. Anything unexpected? Was it a breeze? What was that like? Who wants to go first?
I can go. So when I just actually, when I was writing my book, I just had my daughter at the time. She was like, 6 months, something really, 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 really young. So I think for me, the book writing process, again, I tend to be like an overthinker, overanalyzer. So I kind of want everything perfect before I started. And so I think what I found is that instead of going through that like analytical process during writing, just get it all out. So my process actually started just writing my own personal devotionals kind of to myself about various topics that I was dealing with, and so I think once I just kind of moved out of my own way, that opened up the door for me to just be, just free and real and recognizing like no one's grading it, no one's going to be like having this major, like coming to you, asking you all these things in the beginning. So I think for me, it was really important just to be honest about what I was going through, and not worried about like that next step. So there were some challenging times because when you're trying to be vulnerable and be real and be open and to connect with other readers, there's some hesitancy there. And so just kind of having to trust like, okay, whatever words come out is what's ultimately intended. So there were definitely some challenging days because again, I myself, before I could talk about encouraging others to receive God's mercy more, I had to start with myself. So that's kind of a little bit how my process was.
Jessica, you want to jump in with your process?
Sure. So my process isn't really a process, and it's very different from my lawyer life where everything is a process and everything has a very formulaic system. But for writing children's books, I think you have to have a very lighthearted, jovial voice for your characters. Even though they're dealing with really big issues, you want to make sure that they always have levity. And so a lot of the cases that I take on, they're very heavy cases. So I never wanted to write in a heavy mindset. I always wanted to be really light. So I'd have to really take time away, very intentional time to write. So I'd write on vacation, I'd write on holidays, I'd write on the weekends when life was a bit slower and I just really had levity and space creatively. And so my process, it came in spurts. Sometimes there would be months where I would not write, and I tried not to push it. I tried to just let the inspiration come to me. And I realized that in that time, taking that intentional time away, it could be on a walk, it could be, if I were on vacation, it could be on a plane where I'd get an idea and I just write it down. And that one little note would really blossom into several words, and then those words would blossom into chapters. And so even though I didn't have the process that I have in my lawyer life, I think I was always still creating, but the creation was just slower. And so with writing, I try not to pressure myself to create, because whatever I do write and produce, I want it to inspire, and inspiration should really be authentic and genuine and not forced. And so that's my writing process. And I say process again in quotes.
Yeah. It seems very organic. It's just
Very
kind of
organic.
like, when the spirit moves almost.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I will jump in. I actually just taught a class about writing, my writing process last week for the American Baptist Home Mission Society has a conference Space for Grace. So this is top of mind. So I had a lot of crazy things happen when after I got the contract and for the book with my publisher, Judson Press. I had, we're in the midst of COVID. I had grand ideas that I could get this book written in 4 months. How many of us are, I just thought I'll just grind my way through. But my publisher actually once said to me, "Oh, we've already factored in Leslie is overly ambitious." So I was like, "Oh, okay." But I honestly had multiple deaths in my family between July 15th, 2021. And 2021 was the year that I wrote the book. And the end, December 2022, 8 people died in my family. And I had to serve and be a part of the funerals of 6 of those. So that was really just taxing emotionally. I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I had to have surgery. And thankfully they caught it so early. I only had to have radiation. It was a very small lump that they found. The surgeon was even surprised that they found it. And so I was so grateful for that. But that also was in 2021 when I was supposed to be writing. And honestly, you know, I'm a Black woman, so I was grinding through, I was negotiating, my job had a whole lot of upheaval, all of the things that we all deal with in multiple. But I would say God is faithful, and I was committed to get it done because I felt like this is something that God had called me to do. A fun fact, my daughter was, who's a soror, Spring 19 from Gamma Iota at Hampton. She was working on a master's in international public policy at University College of London and couldn't get to London because they kept having shutdowns as well for COVID. So when she was writing her dissertation, we would find cafes all over the DC, we call it the DMV, sometimes in DC, sometimes Maryland, sometimes Virginia. And we'd go like at the morning, get some coffee, and we just both would grind and write, which was such a blessing to just have like a partner to kind of keep me accountable. She finished though, and I was still writing and trying to make sure I was saying what I wanted to say. And probably all of you have had the experience. I would write things and I'd have to stop and say, do I believe this? Do I still believe this? Do I live up to this? And so that was a part of my process as well, really kind of challenging myself with the words that I was, you know, leaving for the world to read. So a lot of things, but I'm grateful for the support that I had from so many, including many sorors who encouraged me and pushed me along the way as well.
It's really special to have had your daughter with you. That's really special.
Yes, for sure.
Keisha, what was your journey like?
So my journey has some similarities to Sora Tune to some degree. So for years, I had always been told I really need to tell my story. And I'm like, I speak well. I know I write well, but I just wasn't prepared to do it. So I actually was going to hire a ghostwriter. Well, October of 2021, I lost my 21-year-old son to COVID. And I had taken off work, obviously, through FMLA, went back to work and realized a month or so into work, my mental health just wasn't there. And so I told my boss, I'm leaving. I can't do this. My mental health is more important than a job. So as I was sitting there, I still was ready to get this ghostwriter. I was recording myself. I said, hey, girl, listen, take some time out and just start typing up some things, right? And what I realized was I started typing my book. And so for 4 months straight, I distanced myself from everybody, my friends, my family, everyone. And I just sat in front of a fireplace. And my friends told me I need to go to counseling, right? That's what they told me during that time. I was depressed and God told me something different. And so what I did was I just, like I said, I sat in front of my fireplace for 4 months straight and I continued to peck. And I started setting myself a goal. By March, I want a new job. So I want to have 100 or 200 pages written by then. I'm thinking, I don't know if I can do it, but because I kept giving myself a timeline, I kept pushing myself further and further. And what I realized through that process is where I was in February, as far as my mental health, it started to get better because I started telling my story. And it wasn't my story about my son. It was my story about my life and where I had been things I had been through as a child. But the whole capstone of that was, as I stated earlier, I realized that as a young kid, my foundation had been set. My foundation had been set to face adversities. My foundation had been set to learn how to persevere. So what that told me was, even through the trials of losing my son, I had faced another tragedy, but I still was able to persevere. So my writing was more personal for me. And that's what sort of gave me my inspiration and my push every day, every month. And so I did take like a month off because I had some other things to do in regards to my son. And I said, okay, July, you're here. I sat on one day and I wrote maybe 100 pages in one day. And at that point, that's when I contacted my publisher. So where most people have their publisher on the front end, I waited until I was officially finished before I reached out. I didn't tell family, I didn't tell friends besides one person that was writing. So again, it was my therapy. But my therapy I use to now inspire other people when they begin to read my book. And hopefully my words will inspire other people. I'm going to say my words will inspire other people because it got me through a time that I wasn't sure how I was going to make it through. And so I was very thankful to have that opportunity to sit for 4 months with myself and get to that point of healing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Candace, what about your process?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's similar to a lot of different things you ladies have mentioned. I feel like for me, it was somebody said the word calling. So I feel like my book was a calling. It was just one of those things, like, I mean, it was on my brain for probably 8 years or so, right? But it just, that burning desire for this to come out, for that message and impact to come out, it never went away. So I knew God was like, Candace, you have to get this message out. So I'm saying that to say, at some point, I had some downtime and I was like, okay, I just have to begin writing this book. And so I did. I just, as somebody said, they just started typing. So I just started typing away, right? And then I had like a quote unquote first draft. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like almost done. Yeah, right. So what happened was I decided to get an advisory board, right? And so I had like different ethnicities, different ages, genders, etc. And so after like I had did some edits, I went to the advisory board. They came back with their their like comments and edits. And not to say I didn't take everything, but I do appreciate their feedback and suggestions. So I did like rework part of or some of the book and just, and that was a whole nother process and journey. And then I have an editor that I actually work with, like a professional editor. And so that it was just, it's a long journey. I think people don't understand how much time really goes into writing. And it really is the labor of love. But I think the impact that we all bestow upon the world and community is so important and critical. I think that in my process, I had to be still. For me, I'm not a natural writer. I'm more of a math person. Like my undergrad is in economics. I used to work in finance before I got in the health and wellness space. So I'm not a natural writer. So for me, like my brain has to be cleared. I can't have things on my mind like work or stress. And so I just can't always get in that writing mode like some people. So I said the word be still because I had to just find that quiet time to really dig in, to hear God's voice and just to have that fluidity of the words coming out on the pages or on the laptop. So so that was part of my process, and I'm very grateful, especially like I said, for my advisory team and having like the editor, and then it was the publishing process, which is a whole another part of the journey. But yeah, all in all, just I guess it's like for me, it was like a slow and steady type thing that took a while, but I'm glad it came to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Sonia?
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about really how I wrote my first book, because I think that's what propelled me into even becoming an author. So I was working as a school-based therapist and social worker in my prayer closet one night, just praying on what to do next, career-wise. And it just came to me, you are going to write a book about the talk. I wasn't thinking about writing a book. I wasn't this big activist. I thought it was crazy. I didn't tell anybody about it. And then about a week later, just a mile from where my son was going to high school, a Black man was shot and killed. Terrence Crutcher, we were living in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time, was shot by police. And that's when I told my husband, I was like, this is crazy. I've got to write this book. And so I ended up writing this book really to help parents, to help teachers talk to their kids about the talk and what to do if you're ever approached by law enforcement. It's a rhyming book, so I wanted to come up with, things they could remember if they're ever pulled over by the police. And so that was kind of the book that's the process that led to my first book. It got a lot of national attention. But the book for this tour, In Cahoots with My Boots, that was fun to write because it was much more lighthearted. It wasn't a serious topic about this little girl and her boots. But that process was amazing because my first two books had a rhyming theme, and this one I was able to just kind of freely write. And so that was a little different. One thing I've learned with children's books is at the beginning, I remember talking to my editor about the process. And one of the things that she said is a lot of times that children's books will have, you want to decide if it's going to have movement. So you start out with a challenge or a problem, and then, you see how you're going to work through it and what's going to happen at the end of the story. Some books don't have that movement. Some books are just going to be funny. It's just going to be a book so that a kid can laugh out loud. But so this book has the movement because it starts out as a challenge. This girl loves wearing her boots, and then she goes to a school where she can't wear them. So how do we move past that, and how do we get to the end of it? So that was kind of my process. But again, not having to think about rhyming and that whole schematic theme, and just kind of having the freedom to write the story I liked it a lot better than having the confinement of having to have the rhymes.
Yeah, the rhyming seemed like that would be a lot more difficult.
And yeah, it can be challenging. You're on like thesaurus.com and synonyms and coming up with rhyming words and trying to figure it all out.
Sounds a lot harder. I think my process resonated with a couple of people on here. It was very sporadic at first, just on vacation, oh, I'm going to get away this weekend, just really random. Until Keisha had connected me with her publishing consultant. So after I spoke with her, she was like, well, Michelle, you said you're 90% of the way there. When I check back with you in a couple of weeks, I want to see where you are. And that put some fire under me. So I was like, wait a minute, I don't want this lady to call me back and I don't have anything to show. So then I finally kind of buckled down, mornings before work and the evenings, weekends, just really to knock it out. So, but it was just very random. And I just felt like, oh, I need to focus. And it would just be random. So just really having that accountability, I think really helped me to buckle down and get it done. So that was my process. When you think of your books, what do you think sets your book apart from others in the genre? Like, what do you think really sets your book apart? Who wants to jump in on that?
I could jump in. So, for me, I feel like As For Me and My Body is very different because, as I stated, it's all about just helping Christians to understand the intersection between our physical and spiritual health. So I think weaving those principles together is very unique and different for like a quote unquote value proposition for people.
For
So
me,
Foster, go ahead, Sarah Childress.
I'll just jump in here and I'll say jurisprudence. When I started writing the collection, I knew that I wanted jurisprudence to be industrial and resourceful. And I wanted her to represent I wanted a character that wasn't based in struggle. And the characters that I read about as a kid, I loved the Addie, the American Girl collection, and I loved Addie, and she was a slave and she escaped from slavery. And so I see some nods here on the call. And so I see everyone is familiar with Addie, but I wanted a character that was contemporary and that showed a little girl who was lighthearted and who girls today could see themselves in. And that's just something I didn't see. And I started writing this book when I was working at a large law firm, and I would walk into rooms where I was the only Black woman. And I wanted to change the legal profession. I wanted there to be more diversity. But when I was growing up, I did not see characters that looked like a contemporary version of me. And I really had to search those characters out, and there were just so few. And so I did not want that to be the case for the kids who were growing up in this generation. And so jurisprudence, I think she's still the only young 11-year-old lawyer who's a real, in this book, it was important to me that she was a real practicing attorney. She's passed the bar. Her friends are all 11-year-old lawyers. She's gone to law school because I wanted kids to see there's a process to being a lawyer. It's not easy, but it's worth it because you can change your community with your knowledge. And I think that jurisprudence is the only character out here with this particular profile, sharing this particular message of empowerment and never letting anything get in the way of you advocating for something that you believe in.
Awesome, awesome. Our young ladies, especially, with all our youth, really need to see what they can be. So it seems like your book would certainly do that.
I tell my daughter all the time she's going to be a lawyer, so I can't wait to get your book. She's always arguing me up and down.
Thank you. I want everyone's book on the tour. This is so wonderful.
And to answer your question, I think there's so many children's books that talk about affirmations and self-confidence. And so I know I'm not alone in that. I do think one thing that kind of separates is the fact that I focus on, I mean, I say an article of clothing, but it's the boots. And I know that kids or even teenagers put so much focus on what they're wearing, labels. And so I think this can kind of be an introduction to that. Like, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, you can still have that inner confidence. So I think that's one way maybe my book can differ some of the other books that talk about affirmations.
Say too, for my book Merciful Moments, I love devotionals and I read a lot of different ones, and the format of my book is kind of like there's a theme scripture, there's the devotional is directly in relation to my life, and then there's a journal action step question that I pose to the reader, because I'm really big on like, okay, so what are we going to take away with this? So it might be an exercise or an action step that they can really tangibly write and kind of come through to kind of bring that theme alive. And it's really simple. It's really relational. It's 27 days. And I infuse not only humor, but just real life scenarios in my life that I hope that will resonate with the reader as well. So I'm all about practicality. And I feel like the devotional really highlights that so that the reader can, take those next steps as they're reading.
So I'll jump in.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Go
Sir
ahead.
Foster.
Go ahead, Lakeisha.
I'll jump in. I think what sets my book apart, again, as it is an autobiography, as I said, I tell my story to inspire other people, right? So it's not just talking about me. It's how does my story impact someone else? How can my story, when someone read it, say, I can relate to that. And if she can, I can. So I use it definitely to give people motivation to know, again, it doesn't matter what you go through, even though our stories may look different and our shoe sizes may be different, we can all take the walk to perseverance.
Amen. I would say my book on leadership is different in that I really tried to focus on not what leaders should do, what it means to be a leader, because there's a lot out there about leadership activities and starting meetings on time, the whole list of leadership activities. So my book is focused on who a leader should be and who a Christian leader, a Christ-like leader should be. So all of the chapters are on Christ-like qualities like compassion and courage and conviction, and it just kind of goes through. There's all C's for the chapters, but that was just where I found inspiration. There was nothing deep about it or anything. It's just how it flowed. And so I really wanted to, because I think the piece about being in different settings and taking off your Christianity and putting it on when it's convenient was really one of the things I was responding to. And I wanted to really push us who identify as Christians to embody Christ, like wherever you are, if it's on the soccer field or, at a game, in the corporate boardroom, at church, wherever you are, to embody Christ. Now, I am from New York, so I drive like a New Yorker. And so this is a challenge for me. Like whenever I'm behind the wheel, I'm like, Jesus, help me, because I'm screaming and yelling. So we all have growth places, right? Like I just know, yeah, I'm not necessarily witnessing my best in that when I'm behind the wheel in traffic in the DMV. Jessica, I'm sure you can relate. But I'm trying, right? And I'm aware that there are some places where I need to grow. And so that really is how I try to focus and set this work apart from others.
Yeah, those New York drivers are crazy. That's I lived in New York a number of years. My family immigrated from Guyana in South America, and most everyone is still in New York. So I know what you're talking about.
I apologize for if I ever cut you off.
It's like you would be in the right slow lane and taking your time, and they're beeping you. I'm like, I'm in the slow lane. Go around if you have an issue. You know that they're wild in New York.
Forgive me, I apologize.
So my story, I think it's different. It looks like a nonprofit guidebook, but I wove my personal story through it, showing where someone who from a totally different country can really come to America, started in one career and really found my passion elsewhere, and really had the audacity to pursue that passion. So the title sounds like just another nonprofit guidebook, but it really shared my story within it. My mom had even said, I think you needed another book. You need to separate it too. But I thought that's what made it unique. It's not just a how-to, but it's really the fact that it wove my journey through it really is meant to inspire and, really show people what they can do if they really have the nerve to really follow their passion. So that's what that's about. So as we wrap up the interview today, any last words you want to leave with the audience to inspire them to come out to Delta Authors on Tour in Charleston, West Virginia on May 4th? What would you like to leave with them?
I would just say,
say,
be excited to come. Yeah, we're really excited. There's an array of authors, as you can see, with a lot of different, genres, and we're excited just to meet you. And we pray that, you'll identify with something that can bless you and encourage you. So just be open to come and just enjoy the event.
And it's a free event. We'll have food and jazz music. It'll be fun. And it's for the entire family, right? Because we've got children's books, we've got inspirational books, we've got autobiography, we've got a little bit of everything.
Sora Foster, I'd just like to say that this is Sora Jones. This is going to be fabulous. I mean, I'm just sitting here listening to these ladies and what all of you have been through to produce these books. I'm like you, I want every one of them. And I have in mind the ones that I don't keep. I have in mind people that I'm going to give them to. It's just going to be fabulous. And I am so, so happy that you all are taking the time to come to our little city of Charleston. We're a great community, and this is just going to be a fabulous, fabulous event. And I invite everybody in Charleston to come. And thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, Foster, when you ask, the message that we want to give to people and why they should show up. And when I hear the word jazzy, I think of lively, bright, and showy. So when we ask people, when we say to the community, why should you need to come? Because we have a array of lively, showy women that's going to enter into the Kanawha County Public Library to give them the best of us. That's why people should come.
Absolutely. A jazzy book affair.
I just think too that I'm so glad to be a Delta. I mean, one of the best decisions that I made, and just being on this call and just hearing from each of you, I'm just so excited to just meet you in person. I think this is a tough season, like in our nation, and I'm so hopeful of just us gathering together in the ways that just doing that and lifting up these authors and the books that each of us has. It's just going to bring some hope and some excitement into Charleston and other places as well. So I'm really grateful to be a part of this.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you.
I'll just end with the fact that I'm just so elated and in so much gratitude for the invitation to participate in this event. I'm a self-published author, and any opportunity to connect with other authors and to share my work is just, it's such a blessing for me. And so I thank you for this call, because I'm so excited to meet you sorors in person and also to read more about your work. I love books, and I've always loved books. So just collecting books, even in that I'm a book collector. And so I'm just excited to pick up your work. And I also get inspiration from other authors. So if you're an aspiring author and you don't know where to start, you never know what word of motivation you'll receive and which gem, just one little nugget, could plant a seed in your mind that will inspire you to create your next work. And so please come out and hear from these wonderful, wonderful women who have just an array of experiences in writing.
I'm grateful to be on the tour as well. And to everybody out there in Charleston, this is an opportunity for you to get up and close and personal with these wonderful, diverse authors. How often does that happen? I'm looking forward to it because this will be my first trip to Charleston. I've never been never been at all, West Virginia. I was about to say South Carolina.
That's the other Charleston.
Never been to West Virginia, so I'm looking forward to it. So I can't wait to meet all of the lovely people in this great city. So thanks for having us.
Yes, looking forward to meeting you.
Yeah. No, I'll just say, I think, ladies, you guys summed it up very well. I too have never been to Charleston. Actually, I've actually never been to West Virginia, so super excited to add another state on my list, to cross it off my list. But as far as the people coming out, I think it's going to be an amazing time. Like, there's 8 incredible authors. You can ask us anything and everything. We just want to inspire you, and whatever that is. It may not even be to write a book, but maybe it's just to give you a word of encouragement in whatever different area of life you're struggling with right now. I bet somebody on this panel will probably have some type of tip or word of advice that you can leave home with. So I am so excited and eager to meet each of you ladies and to meet all the attendees. So thank you so much, because I know how much work that probably goes into putting this on has to be tremendous. So thank you for the entire Delta team putting this on.
Yes, thank you so much. And just so everyone knows, it will have a professional photographer to take their photos, and the authors will be signing their books, and so it'll be just a wonderful time on May the 4th at the Kanawha County Public Library, downtown Charleston. So we look forward to seeing everyone there at a jazzy book affair hosted in the Midwest region by the Charleston Institute Alumni Chapter. So great to have you all.